Hello. Moving on to Unit 3, a picture story, let us now go through some glimpses of the past. What does the word glimpse mean? The word glimpse means to look at something or someone for a very short time. Here you have a beautiful rendering of song now to listen to and you all enjoyed listening to the song. By the way, did you recognize the singer? I'm sure you all would have listened to this mesmerizing song before. If you look at the song carefully, you have certain great personalities sitting beside the singer. And can you recognize any one of them? I hope you do. Any guesses over the occasion in which this song could have been sung? This song was sung by the very Honorable Lata Mangeshkar on 26 January 1963 at a national stadium in New Delhi. This song was sung in the presence of the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who is also popular to us as Chacha Nehru. Along with that sat Lal Bahadur Shastri and Indira Gandhi on the account of Republic Day celebration at the stadium in 1963. Martyrs in the colonial struggles laid their lives selflessly for the freedom of our country. Their sacrifices and the pain they have gone through cannot be parred with any of the other sacrifices done. This song was a rendering dedicated to all such martyrs of Indian freedom struggle. The lyrics of the song goes like this: "O my countrymen, let your eyes fill with tears as you recall the sacrifices of India's martyrs." As this song was sung, she remembers and reminds us all, the ones who sacrificed their lives during the first war of independence in 1857. What is the first war of independence in India? It is a rebellious uproar that took place in the 1857 as a result of extreme subjugation and theft of Indian economy from the British Raj. The story that is going to unfold now is to tell you what triggered the first war and why so many brave souls martyred. The Britishers ruled over the country as their roots went deep down through the East India Company. They were heading throughout the entire nation from Calcutta. Now, take a look at this picture appearing on your screen. It shows you the routes to India in the 18th century as paved by the British. However, Indian princesses were short-sighted about the encroachment of the Britishers. They asked favour of English merchant to defeat other princely states of Indian kings themselves. Enmity amongst princely states of India helped the Britishers to spread their wings. Tipu Sultan, also popularly known as the Tiger of Mysore, is remembered for a number of administrative innovations during his rule, including a new land revenue system which initiated the growth of the Mysore silk industry. Tipu Sultan, celebrated as a hero of colonial resistance, was defeated and killed in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War by the forces of the British East India Company. There were unrest amongst common people for losing their lovable ruler. The Indian princess were ready to forego their freedom in order to defeat and gain an upper hand amongst the other princes of the nation. Their ego was the biggest destructor. However, with time, they realized that they were ruled by the outsiders and regretted for opposing their own countrymen. The various preachings of the religious groups affected the betterment of the society overall. Practices like untouchability and caste system isolated the marginal groups of the society who are mainly people from the lower caste and religion other than Hinduism. Child marriages, that is, when a boy or a girl below the age stipulated by the law are married off. Inhumane practices such as sati, in which a widow sacrifices herself by sitting atop her deceased husband's funeral pyre, were preached and practiced. They were a blot to the society's betterment. Britishers were also desisting Indians. In totality, society was at its lowest. Britishers were interested in making easy profits at the earliest. They enforced Indian farmers and common people to pay arrears, otherwise the Britishers threatened them of arresting them and putting them behind the bars. Also, people were too submissive, so the Britishers forced them to buy manufactured goods made from England. That curbed the Indian cottage and small-scale industries. They were ruined to the extreme. Inevitably, famines followed. Between 1822 and 1836, 15 lakh Indians died of starvation. The social movement started when Raja Ram Mohan Roy initiated an awareness program. He worked against superstitions, cruel practices followed in various cultures, and in favor of strengthening the positive sides of culture. Roy was also successful in putting a full stop to practices such as sati, child marriage, and caste discrimination, along with instigating to fight for some share in husband's property for the livelihood of the wife who is left behind sourceless. His love for science and modern knowledge reflects through his speeches and in his encouragement for English education in India, welcoming a positive change during the British rule. Being an active contributor to the first newspaper of Asia, the Bengal Gazette, he not only enriched people's knowledge but also empowered them. He went to England to assess the strength of Britishers. He made them aware of their duties and became an inspiration to many young leaders. This was the phase of oppression. In 1818, Britishers had passed the Third Regulation Act. Under it, an Indian could be jailed without a trial. Britishers were getting powerful and were flourishing through businesses. Britishers forcefully exported goods from Britain worth 7 crores by the year 1829. This led to the closing of Indian industries. Indian weavers lost their livelihood and it was getting difficult for them to sustain against the cheap option. In 1835, Lord Macaulay suggested bringing changes in the education system of India. His views to emphasize stress on the English language as a medium of instruction for education was to benefit the trade and business of the British. They tried to replace the then existing traditional way of education and invested completely on the improvement of English literature and science. The reason behind promoting English language was to make use of the labour in India with better understanding and cheaper remuneration. As a result of it, a conscientious intellectual class emerged and wanted education for fellow countrymen. Our Indians were also aware of the pathetic condition due to the change in the system, and so they felt the need to represent the reality before the rulers. Here is a clipping of Lord Macaulay quoting that Indians should be moulded according to the terms of the whites. It was 1856 when the Britishers conquered the whole of India. Indian social system was at its lowest. Jobs, lands, religion pursuing one's faith, all these were snatched by them. The spark talks about an era when the peasant lost their patience. The spark talks about an era when the peasant lost their patience. India, being one of the largest agrarian country, anything that affects the occupation kindled extreme unrest in people. They also were asked to pay heavy taxes and were devoid of land. In 1855, the Santals, a group of tribe who fought for their agricultural land and freedom, felt oppressed because of new land rules. They massacred Europeans and their supporters. Apart from the farmers, army men faced discrimination too in promotions and salary. So, they were getting disconcerted as well. They wanted to uproot the British rule. The uniforms of rebellious sepoy were stripped off disrespectfully. Britishers were callous towards the faiths of Indians. Irrespective of caste or religions, they decided to get united to take revenge. They sent the message of rebellious attributes by sending chapatis and circulating lotus flowers. Emperor and patriots took steps to take revenge against the Britishers. The first freedom movement started in 1857 in Meerut. Britishers called it a mutiny. It took a violent turn in Meerut. Then the fire of sepoy marched towards Delhi under the aegis of Bahadur Shah. The movement reached far and wide. Later, the landlords who were deprived of their lands also joined it to uproot the British Raj. The fight for freedom also ignited the anguish of former rulers like Begum Hazrat, whose estate was confiscated. Maulvi Ahmadullah of Faizabad motivated the fellow countrymen to wage war against oppressors. The voices of rebellion also rose from every nook and corner, be it Lucknow, Bareilly, Kanpur, Allahabad and many more. The rulers like Azimullah Khan, Tantia Tope, Peshwa Nana Sahib organized themselves to face the wrath of British rule. The fighters were the patrons of the sovereignty of India. They stood fast to their aspiration to give a tough fight to the onslaughters who had taken away their motherland and exploited through every means possible in order to make money. No wonder 80-year-old Kunwar Singh of Bihar, hit by a bullet, laid his life for liberating his land. Look at the comprehension check appearing on your screen now of page 45. The questions that are given here are left for you to solve, as it speaks about everything that I have already mentioned earlier in the lesson. Now, take a look at working with the text. The questions have already appeared on your screen, and now what you have to do is to start solving them. Let us go through question number 2, leaving the 1 for your thought. Question 2 goes like this: how did the East India Company subdue the Indian princesses? And the answer for it: the East India Company spread their wings in India to promote their trade. They supported one Indian prince to defeat the other. As a result, power passed on to their hands. The next question following, you have it on the screen again. Quote the words used by Ram Mohan Roy to say that every religion teaches the same principles. Answer for this. The words of Ram Mohan Roy spoken to his wife were, "Cows are of different colors, but the color of their milk is the same. Different teachers have different opinions, but the essence of religion is the same." Isn't that wonderful, children? Yes. Moving on to question number 4. In what ways did the British officers exploit Indians? The British rulers passed a resolution under which an Indian could be sent to jail without trial in a court. The goods manufactured in England were exempted from the custom duty. The officers prospered on the company's loot and their private businesses flourished. Look at question 5. Question 5 here is a bit tricky, that you have to grasp a few names from the session we had before and then put it here according to the option that is asked for. Question number 1 asks you to give the ruler who fought pitched battles against the British and died fighting, which is Tipu Sultan of Mysore. Question 2, the person who wanted to reform the society. I am sure you would have gotten it already. Yes, it is indeed Raja Ram Mohan Roy of Bengal. Question number 3, the person who recommended the introduction of English education in India. Do you remember we all went through a small paper clipping and I asked you to read it through on the screen? Yes, it's the same person, Lord Macaulay. Question number 4, 2 popular leaders who led the revolt. Here, your choices may vary, and according to what we have sorted out right now, I will give you 2 names that I have put down. It's Kunwar Singh and Begum Hazrat Mahal. Let us now move on to question 6, children. Here, we are asked to mention the following. Number 1, 2 examples of social practices prevailing then, and the options mentioned are untouchability and child marriage. Option 2 given to you as a question, 2 oppressive policies of the British. The British masters allowed imports in India tax-free. They ruined Indian cottage industries. 2 ways in which common people suffered. The 2 ways given as an answer are, the farmers were taxed heavily and the thumbs of skilled workers were cut. Going to the last option of question given, 4 reasons for the discontent that led to the 1857 War of Independence. Here, I will give the 3 options of answers to you and ask you to write one yourself. Option A, Santals who lost their land became desperate and they revolted. Option B, the sepoys in the English army were paid much less than the white soldiers. So, they were discontented and angry. Option C, many landlords were so because of the British policies deprived them of their land and estate. Now, as I already mentioned, you have a task to find the last option of answer yourself. Let us now move to working with the language. Here, we have a simple distinction between the 2 sorts of narratives mentioned in the picture story. That is, in comics, what the characters speak is put in bubbles. As you see in the picture, the one which is bubbled, the dialogue in which it is bubbled, is a direct narration. When we report what the characters speak, that is, when you are trying to narrate about the incident that has a dialogue, we use the method of indirect narration. Here, study these examples on the screen and work the other questions yourself. The answers to the questions are put up on your screen for a brief check. Let us move on to something very interesting now. That is, making you write and work is an interesting part for all of us teachers. Look at the pictures given in pages 47 and 48. I am sure you all would have come across this fable in your childhood. Now, look through this and write the same story in a comic representation using the direct and indirect speech. Students, now that we have come to the end of lesson Glimpses of the Past, here is a fun activity for you to do. Here is an extra reading for you to do so that you get to think out of the box. Go through the news article clipping on page 49 for you to realize why comical reading of a history is very important in the English classroom. Here is a fun activity to make you experience the fun of bubble writing. Create a comic of your own from any of the fables or tales that you have read during your childhood. It's time for us to end the session now. I hope you all enjoyed a ride through the glorious past of India. Until we meet you in the next session, see you all, children.